conflict search. We want to make sure to enable it, and that's one of the things we're going over. So we go under clients and settings, and you'll want to make sure that you have this button right here toggled about a third of the way down the page under conflicts and related parties. You toggle this box right here, hit save, and then as I mentioned before, it's not going to immediately show up under your client screen. You have to log out and then log in again. Then you'll see your related parties in your conflict search. Then I was also talking about how under clients and settings, you'll see two new tabs here, related party types and relationship types. Under the relationship types, you can create as many different types of relationships you want to maybe designate for people who will be related parties. Okay, so I have some here, judge, opposing counsel, plaintiff, server, whatever it might be. And then as I mentioned before, we do want to have the tab here of related party types, and we recommend just creating one that's just your client. That would be the easiest way to. It's not really something you're actually going to end up using a lot, to be perfectly honest. So that's the settings you want to have in place. Then you'll want to create those related parties. So you go under clients again to related parties. And I have my list of, what is it, 7 or 8 here already. You click here to create a new related party, and I created this one, Eddie Rosario. And down this left column, this is where I can choose the type as client. If you have a custom label you want to create, you can. I think it's important to put any notes here about that related party so that you can reference it in the past. And then once you create it, then you can go back into that person. And down here at the bottom of the screen is where you'll see where you can add new relationships. As I was mentioning, you don't have to do this, but it is, if you know that a particular related party is specifically has a relationship with one of your clients and matters, this is where you create that relationship. And you can create as many as you'd like. So I'm going to click on new relationship down here. Then we have these built-in types that you can create: client, adversary, co-party, other, whatever it might be. Here's that subtype of relationships that we created already. Then this is where you choose whether you're going to associate it to a client in general or to a specific matter. You find that client and matter down here. So we could say August webinar is the client that I'm associating it to, the date. Again, if you have a custom label, you can utilize that text field here, and then any notes. And I'm going to hit save. And I have my list of various relationships I might have for Eddie Rosario. Then when the time comes and you need to do a conflict search, then we want to come down here to conflict search. And then you can do the search here any way you'd like. I could start typing in Eddie. And you can see I have 2 relationships created for Eddie Rosario. I have one Eddie Rosario, he is a related party. If I don't associate or have a relationship set up for Eddie, it would just show this as a related party. And I was showing that if you type Chuck, for example, Chuck Knoll is who I have in here as a related party, but I don't have a relationship set up with any particular client or matter in this case. So there's a lot of broad things you can do with the conflict search. And when you set up your related parties, you could just have them in the system, and if you don't associate them or create a relationship with any of your clients or your matters, then they're going to appear like this if you ever do a conflict search for them. So would probably highly recommend that for any of these related parties, you know, the whole point of creating them is to establish a relationship with a client or matter, so that if down the road something happens and they're coming in, they need legal work, you can look and see if there's a conflict of interest that I have or my firm has because somebody else may have done some work for them or whatever it might be. And this is where you create that relationship right down here. Okay. All right. So that was, I'm still flustered over the fact that I didn't share my screen the first 20 minutes of this, and I didn't check the chat either. So again, okay. My apologies. So let's move on. We'll just make up for that little faux pas. So our next item that I wanted to cover here today was about creating matter budgets. A real strong suit of TimeSolv is the ability, before you start working on a matter, to budget. And you can, that budget can mean all sorts of things. We can be budgeting the overall amount of hours that we're going to work on a matter. We can budget the overall fees that we want to charge for the matter, the expenses, the invoice. We're not going to, do any invoice over a certain amount, or once we invoice up to a certain amount, we won't be able to send out any more invoices. So there's lots of ways that you can set up your matter budget before you start working. So let's talk about where you would go about doing that. When we're in our clients and matters here, and let's go into an existing matter, this real versus Clayson 1, okay? Anytime you're looking at a matter, you will have a tab called budget. So we click there and we see we have, I'm going to go ahead and put this back to 0. We have then several sub tabs, and I like to think of these different budget tabs as going from the most broad budget you could create to the most specific granular budget that you could create for a matter. So the first tab by default you see is our matter tab, and this is where you could create a budget for the entire matter. This is just overall work that's going to be done, and you can budget how many hours you want to designate for this matter, the fees, and if you do just a fees, this will just, and you still are doing hourly entries or time entries, it would just, once you hit $5,000 worth of fees that are time entries, it's going to stop. Expenses is the same way. Invoice amount is the same way. Okay, so let's talk about, like, if we say we're only going to budget $500 overall budget for this matter. These boxes over here as well is a prevent exceeding. So if we go over the amount that we budgeted for, then we basically can't do anything. So in this case, I have $500 that I'm going to budget. I'm going to prevent this from exceeding. Let's see how that works in practice. So let's go make a time entry that exceeds $500 and try to create an invoice for this particular client and matter. Okay, so I'm going to put in 3 hours worth of work. You can see that's $825. That's going to exceed our budget. Now I go to create my draft invoice. And if I create a new draft invoice and I go to, let's just create one just for Dana, you're going to see it's going to create my invoice for over the amount that we budgeted for. It's still going to show me I have a $825 invoice here. But because I designated to prevent exceeding, if I go to try to send this invoice and I go to send it, I can't, because the budgeted invoice amount has exceeded $500. It'll show me $500. So this can be a safeguard against yourself by budgeting. If you know you're not going to, you agree you're not going to charge over a certain amount, but as you do the work, you actually go above the amount as far as time entries or whatever it might be. This is a way to safeguard yourself that you don't actually send that invoice to a client. So I would have to change this. I prevented the exceeding. Now, if I had in my budget for this not checked this box, I still would have been able to exceed it. Okay, so it would tell you, it would have given me a warning, a yellow warning, but it still would have sent it. Now, in practicality, it also works here under the hours. And let's go back. I'm going to delete that time entry there. Oh, first, I need to void out that draft. So I'm going to void the draft. I'm going to go into the time entry, and I'm going to delete the time entry. And now I'm going to go back to that matter. I'm going to go to my budget, and I'm going to say I'm only going to budget 10. Well, let's just keep it simple. I'm going to say 8 hours, and I'm going to prevent exceeding. I'm going to take this out completely. Okay, so same thing now here. We've budgeted 8 hours on this matter. What happens if we try to enter more than 8 hours? If I try to enter 10 hours, let's say. Same thing, matter hours budget exceeded, can't do it. I cannot make that time entry. And if I uncheck that prevent exceeding box, so go back to our budget, uncheck it. Now what does it look like? And by the way, I'll show you this progress bar. We've budgeted 8 hours. Let's go back and put in like 3 hours worth, and you'll see, let me do 3 hours. If I go back now to that budget, you'll notice it shows me the progress bar here, and it shows me my actuals and my remaining. So this is a good way to sort of stay, you know, where are we at with this? But if we do exceed this, and I did not check that box about prevent exceeding, and so I am going to go and I'm going to do another 7 hours. It's going to allow me to make that time entry, but I am going to get this yellow light, if you will, that I saved the time entry. However, I have exceeded my matter hour budget. So this is, you know, you can get kind of just have these warning lights, and now you could adjust from here and decide what you're going to do. Or you could make it really a hard stop where you cannot make that time entry if you exceed the budget, or send the invoice, or whatever it might be, if you check that prevent exceeding box. So this is where you as a firm can determine, you know, and this will even show me I am 2 hours above my budget. I budgeted 8, I'm actually 10 hours above. This prevent exceeding can be the real hard stop to make sure you never really, nothing can be done if you exceed the budgets that you enter. Okay, so you'll see this in most of the places where you can create these budgets, but let's talk about the different types of budgets you can create. I just talked about how you can create this overall matter budget. And then we can go here to professional, okay? And you can decide, I want to create a budget by the professionals I'm having working on this matter. So let's first of all make sure we have, you know, timekeepers in place that are assigned to this matter. So we'll go under here to this assignments tab. And yes, Anthony, I will slow down a little bit. I'm sorry if I'm going a little too fast there. Anthony, one of our attendees, wanted me to slow down just a little bit. I'm going to go under assignments here, and I'm going to assign this matter to these 3 timekeepers of mine: Tony Hill, Mike Hagman, Doug Cosby. Now I can come back here and create a budget that is very specific to my professionals. And I would come to this professional tab. I go to enter budget, and I can choose, you know, myself, Scott Laidlaw is my admin here for my account, or these other 3. And same thing, I can put in hours, fees, the expenses, and then again, the prevent exceeding. And then I could do that if I put in that, you know, I'm going to Mike Hagman's only going to get 2 hours. You can see the fees automatically calculate based on his hourly rate. I can save that. I can then enter another one for Doug Cosby. I'm going to give him 5 hours, and so on. And then you can see these totals. And by the way, you can always export these budgets. No matter which type of budget you're creating, you can always export them to Excel right here, as you can see. So I'm going to go ahead and delete these. So again, you can budget by the professional then. For those that create, I know this is, I think, very handy for those that have to create leads files or electronic bills. I know a lot of the organizations that take leads files sometimes will require you to submit a budget ahead of time. And this is where the task codes, the ABA task codes, come into play. You can create a budget by task codes for your matter. So I'm in the task codes tab here. I hit enter budget. And you can see here's all of the ABA task codes that are built in for TimeSolv Legal. Or if you have created your own custom task codes, those would be available as well. Like I have a new rate for certain, you know, there's different ones that I have created. But any task code you have set up will be available here. And then again, once you select that task code, you can budget. How many hours am I going to work on this task, and what are the fees going to be? Same things with expenses. It'll be the same exact thing. All the ABA expense codes will be available here so that you can set up a budget by the codes. You could then export it and submit that for approval before the work that needs to be done for, say, leads files. Then you can get even more granular if you've set up a matter plan, and you can budget by the plan tasks that you create. In this case, I don't have a matter plan set up. So I would go over here to my matter plan area, and I would say I want to have a new plan task. And the task is, let's just keep it simple. Task 1. I haven't created any phases, but you could create a phase and associate it under a phase. You could have start and stop dates, dependencies. Again, you could associate task codes if you'd like to these tasks that you're creating. I'm going to hit save. Let's just create one more. Now I can come back in under my budget here. I can go to my plan tasks. I can enter a budget, and when I hit enter budget over here, I have my choice of all the plan tasks I've created. And I can enter my budget. You can also do this right at the matter plan level, by the way. I can come in here once I've created this matter plan. Oh, here we go. It's spinning here for me. Stop this. I seem to have got caught up here in a loop of some sort. I am obviously having, I don't know if I'm having some internet issues right now. I can't go back to my matter plan. There we go. Okay. So let's go back there and I'll show you. When I have these tasks created and I want to enter a budget for them, I don't have to necessarily go back to this budget tab and do what I was just showing you. From this screen here, if you actually click on the task itself, you can go under and do the budgets here if you'd like. Okay, so you don't have to do it under the budget tab. Okay, one thing I'm going to do here now, I'm going to require a professional assignment, because the last and the most granular way that you can budget your matters is not just by the task that you create, but by the professional assigned to that task. So you want to come under here, and I'm going to first assign this task here. You notice that when I check that box, professional assignment required, this little person icon popped up. If I click on that, it'll show me the people I've already assigned to it, and I can check the box and say, this is Mike Hagman is going to be doing the work on this, and task 2 is going to be Tony Hill, and so on. So now I can come back again here under the budget. And there's one, again, you can actually click on the task if you'd like, go to your budget and actuals, and down here you can see I have Mike Hagman as my professional, and I could budget the hours, the fees, or the expenses, prevent exceeding hours, prevent exceeding expenses, and so on. So you can do it right here from the task, or once, if you'd like, you come under here to our professional plan task, enter the budget over here, and the same thing will appear. I have task 1, which is assigned to Mike Hagman. I could assign the hours and so on, or I could come in here and say, okay, let's go to Tony Hill. He's assigned to task 2. So again, you can get really, really granular in how you're going to create your matter budget by very specific tasks that you've created that need to be done, assigning them to a specific person, and assigning that specific person a number of hours or fees or expenses that they have to complete that work. So you can get very, very detailed if you'd like with your matter budget. Or, like I said at the beginning, you can get really, really granular and just overall total, doesn't matter who's doing the work on this matter, here's what I'm budgeting, whatever it might be. Okay? So I hope that's pretty clear about how all the various ways that you can create a budget for your matter before you start working on it. Was it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different ways you could set up a budget if you'd like. Okay, let's talk about our next topic, which is creating new contacts. What we find for a lot of people, when you go under clients here, you have clients to manage and you have contacts. If you go under just contacts here, this is going to show you all the contacts that you have created in TimeSolv. You can click on one and you can see the association that you have with them. For example, in this case, Terry Bradshaw is associated with these 3 clients. You will, when you come here, you'll automatically see the whole list of all your clients and matters. If you want to see, okay, Terry Bradshaw, just show me everything that he's just associated with. and it'll make it a little easier to see this. So that's how you can view all of your existing contacts. You can also create new contacts right here. You can also look up what the system would consider potentially duplicate contacts. Okay. Most people, though, create their contacts at the client level or the matter level, which is understandable. You've created a brand new client. Let's go back to this Dana one. And I go to my contacts tab right next to my general, and I don't have any contacts associated. Now, you're going to want to associate or create a contact for these clients because you probably are going to want a name and an address on the invoice that you're going to create. And when TimeSolv creates their draft invoices, they are going to be pulling from this area. Is there a contact associated with the Dana Real client? And this is where you would want to create that. Okay. First of all, by default, I should show you that it's only going to show you any already associated contacts. And obviously, this is a new client, so nobody's already associated. If for some reason you had somebody in your system already as a contact that you wanted to associate with this client, you could say, show me all contacts. It'll come in here again. You could find that person by entering a search event, typing the name, finding them, coming over to associations, and having a new association with them, okay? But what most people are gonna end up doing is creating a new contact here. So let's go ahead and do that. And I've mentioned this many times, but I just want to make sure it's very clear. There are 4 different types of contacts you can create that are going to be associated with clients and matters. The main contact is the default one. This is the person who will receive the invoice for any matter that you create for them, unless you designate a optional invoice as the type. The scenario that often will play out is if say you're doing work for a company and your main contact is the president of the company, but the president of the company doesn't want to get the invoice. He wants the invoice sent to the accounting department. You could still create main contact here. So again, let's talk about Max Kepler is going to be the main contact, and you could put in all the various information you want, email address, all this is the information that would then appear on the invoice, okay? And we're gonna hit save. And you can see Max Kepler shows up here as the main contact, okay? But Max, as the president of the company, doesn't want the invoices sent to him. So I could create another contact that is optional invoice. And this person, Byron Buxton, is in here. Again, email address, everything like that. You can enter later, obviously, or at the time. Optional invoice people will always supersede the main contact type as the person who will have their name on the invoice, and the invoice will be sent to. If you're going to designate, you're going to send it by email, you obviously have to have an email address for this contact. Okay, TimeSolv will always look first when it's creating the invoice and look at the client and say, is there an optional invoice contact type? No. Then let's go ahead and create a main contact. Is there a main contact? Yes. Put the main contact on the invoice. If there is neither, there's no contacts set up, you're not going to, all you're going to have is the name of the client on that invoice. There's going to be no, it's not going to be sent to anybody because you don't have an email set up to them. If you send your invoices via email, you don't have an address, nothing. It'll literally just have the name of the client. Here's where people also get confused when it comes to at the matter level. If you have a contact set up at the client level, and that same person is going to get, and you might work on multiple matters for this client, if that same person is also the person who should receive the invoice, you don't have to create a contact at the matter level. And this is where a lot of people create duplicates. So when I'm clicking on this specific matter for Dana, the Real versus Clayson case, and I have contacts here, I don't have to create a new contact. Now, one of the things I've talked to I'm talking to our developers about actually is it would be, I think, more intuitive if we had the contacts at the client level listed here. So you at least can visually see, I already have a contact, associated at the client level. In this case, it looks like, oh, well, if I send out an invoice for this specific matter, then gosh, they're not going to get it because there's no contact here. That's not the case. Okay. You can create contacts at the matter level if you'd like. You can create optional invoices and so on. Because again, if you're working for maybe a large company that you have many, many matters and the matters need to be sent to different people, this is the way you could do that, is by associating a different contact with at the matter level. And again, you can create them as either main or optional invoice. TimeSolv will always look first, when it's creating the invoice, it'll first look at the matter level. Is there a contact associated? Yes. What's the contact type? Is it optional invoice? No. Is it main? Yes. Okay, then that name will be put on the invoice. If it looks and says, is there a contact associated at the matter level? No, there's no contact here. It'll ride up to the client level. At the client level, is there a contact there? Yes. Is it optional invoice? No. Is it main? Yes. Then that's the name that will be put on the invoice. So think of it as a hierarchy. TimeSolv it's hierarchical. It'll create your invoices and look first at the matter level and then move up from there. It'll first check optional invoice as the first option. No. Main? No. Okay. Is there anybody up at the client level? Yes. Is it optional invoice? No. Is it main? Yes. Then it'll put the main name on there. So I hope that makes sense in how you can go about managing your contacts. The one thing I do want to show you that can get a little confusing is you may have seen that we do have a contact type that you could create that's related party or other. If you do associate that as a related party within the matter itself, when you do that conflict search, that person will come up and it'll show that it's a related party. Okay. Unfortunately, you don't have the option to create, the relationship because it's already there because you create that related party at the client or matter level. Most people will just use the optional invoice type or main type at this level. If you need to put others or whatever, you certainly can. Okay. So I hope that's fairly clear for everybody about how you go about managing contacts and avoiding creating duplicate contacts. Okay, let's talk about our last topic for the day. And that is, it's a relatively simple one. And that is the idea of looking at invoices at the matter level. As I mentioned at the top, when you come under invoices to sent, this is where it's very easy to see a whole list of your sent invoices. And I could say, show me everything from January 1st to today. I can do a search here. I can even do a search by fixed fees. I could enter the name of a client here. Best, let's say, search for that. And here's all my Best Buy, matters or invoices I've sent for this date range, whatever it might be. This is generally the place where people will access all of their sent invoices. However, you can do the same thing at the matter level over here. So if I'm looking at, let's look at, I think there was one I was looking at earlier. Jerry and Friends is the name of my client and title is the name of my matter. Under my Invoices tab that you see right here, you can see a whole history of your invoices for the specific matter. It will be in invoice number order. You can certainly click on this to sort it by dates of service that are in the invoice. You can sort by balance, so you can see if you have a lot of invoices, what balances are still outstanding. It will show you over here, this is a nice box to show, like I have a WIP of $2,300. So this is work in progress. This is unbilled time that I have sitting here waiting to be billed out. I've invoiced out $3,700 worth. I have a payment that I haven't allocated yet. And there's nothing here in the trust balance. So you can see I've worked $7,200 worth, but I've only billed $4,800 worth of stuff. So this is a good kind of a snapshot to see, what's going on with the invoices. This is also the place when you maybe first with TimeSolv, you can enter the previous balance amount and the date. Okay. So that's the other things that you can do here as well under this invoice tab. But this is a good general place. Obviously, yes, you can go under your sent invoices, search by this name of this matter, and look at all the invoices that way. But I like being over here, being able to see like what's still hanging out there. This will show you in one quick snapshot. Here's some unbilled time. Oh, I have a payment I haven't allocated. Whoops, I need to do that. You can see that here and so on. So again, that's just under your matter and this invoices tab. It's only going to be at the matter level. You're not going to see that at the client level. You're only going to see that with the specific matter level. Here's this one. You can see I haven't billed out much here. I've only billed $1,200 worth, and it's been paid. There's no balance on it, but I have $13,000 of unbilled time, it looks like, for this particular matter. I better send them an invoice, right? So I hope that's clear for everybody. Okay, so despite my complete and utter lack of sharing the screen there the first 20 minutes, which I'm just feeling like an idiot, I'd like to take any questions that you might have. You can use either the Q&A section. I see a lot of people when the chat was happening put things in the chat section, or when I was not sharing. So you can certainly put in questions there, or in just the question and answer section on the webinar. So I will let you guys think of any questions you might have here. Courtney, thank you. I'm glad you felt like everything was explained well. It obviously, I'm sure, was much easier when you could see what the heck I was talking about. Just a reminder too, I have recorded this, so I do plan on sending out a recording, a link to the recording, as well as this will be uploaded to the TimeSolv YouTube page, so you'll be able to access it there. And then just also a reminder, and I'll show it here on screen, if you ever have any questions, you can email us at support@timesolv.com. Or you can call us at our support number, 1-800-725-1284. And I should put extension 2. You'll want to hit 2 then after you call that number, and that'll take you directly to our support line. You can also engage in a chat session if you prefer that method. If you go to our website, timesolv.com, you can start a chat with one of our sales or support people. So please, if I didn't, Tony, I know that you mentioned wanted me to slow down a little bit. If I didn't answer your questions and you don't have a chance to get to the recording, or if there was something you feel like I just went too quick, please make sure you check in with support, and they'll be able to walk you through in a one-on-one fashion. So if there was something that you didn't quite get because I moved a little too quickly, they'll be able to help you out. So that's all I have for today's Wednesday webinar. I'll never be able to live this down, that I actually forgot to share my screen. Oh, goodness gracious. So anyway, for everyone who had the patience to sit through that mess of the first 20 minutes, I appreciate it. I'm happy you guys stuck around. And if you have any other questions, like I said, please let us know at support. Otherwise, look for a recording of this, and we will talk to you next month. Looks like let me look at the calendar here. It would be May 8th. Wednesday, May 8th is when we'll have our next Wednesday webinar. And I'm hoping, I shouldn't even say this, but I'm going to. I hope I can show you our updated mobile app that should be coming out and should be available by then. I can't guarantee it, but the timeline that I've seen would have that in place. Part of it will depend on how long it takes, like the Apple iTunes Store or the App Store to approve the app when it gets submitted. But Let's shoot for that. Let's say May 8th. Hopefully we can show you the new mobile app. So exciting news. Okay, everybody, thanks for joining me, and we'll see you next month. Talk to you later, everybody.